Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to introduce Lorelei. I know a lot of folks here are probably interested and concerned about a solar project, the Raceway Solar Project. Now that project, the EIR, the Environmental Impact Study, has not hit the streets yet, and so I have to be very careful about what I say about a project when I haven't seen an EIR yet. But I will tell you that I have heard a lot of concerns from a lot of folks around Rosamond about this. I've read your letters, I've read your emails, and so I have my own concerns about the proximity to homes for this particular project. But as I said, because everyone gets a right to go through the process, this is America. We can't tell project applicants that, sorry, we don't like the looks of this project, we're not going to process it. Everybody gets a chance to go through the public process with the EIR and the public hearings, planning commission, etc. So what Lorelei is going to do is she is going to explain to you where that project is right now and also how things will go moving forward. So Lorelei Oviatt, 40-year resident of Rosamond. Come on up.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I'm going to talk about two things. First, I'm going to talk about the S-Power Raceway project, and then I'm going to talk about where we're at with cannabis retail operations. So for those of you floating around here is this handout that I provided. If there's extras, please take them with you and give them to your friends. And I know that you had a presentation from S-Power, I understand, and I also understand that there are concerned citizens group, and I hope to hear from them also tonight, and I think they are on the agenda. So first of all, this is not a county project. It is not a project by ABAC. They happen to own some of the land. They're an applicant property owner. So this is a private company, S-Power, as you know, who has brought forward a commercial scale solar project. That requires a conditional use permit. In addition, they are asking to change some of the public access easements and vacate them and do a few other things. So this has to go to both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. The notice of preparation that was released is just the first step in sending out, when you do an EIR, we send out the notice of preparation with a generic, some details on the project, but we don't have them all yet because we don't have an environmental impact report. And we get comments back, and we did get comments back. The reason I'm here is because I want you to understand the length of time that this process takes, so that you can be clear about your organizing and whatever it is you're doing, that nothing is happening over Christmas, nothing is happening over New Year's, and nothing is going to happen for months. And so I just felt like it was important to explain how this process works and what the timelines are. The schedule you have is a schedule developed by my department. It is not the applicant's schedule. I am sure the applicant would like a quicker schedule, and they will not get that. This is the schedule. And what this schedule means when you look at it is if they choose to continue moving forward, and one of the things that we do when we process this project is I, as the director of the department, have to formulate a recommendation to the Planning Commission or the board. And I have not formulated a recommendation yet. And I've told them about my concerns. How many people here were at the Antelope Acres evening meeting where I spoke? I am still there. I'm still there in regards to, I have not told them that I support this project because of its location and its configuration. Now, that gives them an opportunity to make decisions. It costs money to go through this process. So one of the things that can happen is developers can decide to redesign the project. They can decide to wait to process the project, or they can withdraw the project. But if they don't do any of those three things, we are mandated by state law to continue processing. I've seen many comments that have asked, you should stop this now. Thank God we live in America, where property owners have the right to have their say as well. So we're going to go through a public process if they want one. And second of all, I saw a very clever, I thought it was a very clever comment letter where people were sending in, asking the board for a straw poll. That's actually not legal. The board cannot convene a meeting and say, well, there's really nothing in front of us, but we've heard concerns, we'd like to just send an advisory vote. That's actually not legal, but I thought it was very clever, and I thought there was very well-written comments, and many people have duplicated that and sent that in. So I wanted to just point that out, and Supervisor Scribner clarified that. So on the schedule on the front, it says, if they decide to continue moving forward, the earliest that you would see an environmental impact report is July, August. That will not be accelerated. You will not see an EIR in March, and you will not see one earlier than July, August, and it may be later than that. And that is because they need to address, we need to address in this EIR, it's the county's EIR, your comments, but also we need to address the issues that I have about how close they are to the houses and how kind of claustrophobic it feels. And so there may be redesigns, there may be other options, and whether I support those options or not, they have to be analyzed in this document. Because the planning commissioners and the board are the ultimate board is the ultimate decision maker. But if there are options, then in all fairness to the applicant, who's somewhere over here, they're sitting there and saying, you know, S Power's out here someplace, they have a right to have those analyzed in the EIR and make their case for those options, right? So July, August, and EIR goes out. That's 45 days of comments. They'll get a notice, they'll get copies, the RMAC will get copies, we will have it online. We send out a letter. Whoever comments to us, they end up getting this one-page notice of availability, and you can go to the link, you can call, you can email us, and we'll send you a CD. We'll put hard copies in the library. You can actually look at it hard copy. Then, at that time, we pick a planning commission. If it's circulating in July, August, the planning commission will be no earlier than October. It's not scheduled yet, there's no schedule yet, but I'm just letting you know what the schedule is so that there's no surprises. I give you my word, and my word is good, that there's not going to be any, well, she said October, and suddenly in March she circulated an EIR, and we all went on vacation, and then in September they went to a planning commission. That is not the way we do business here in Kern County. I understand that some of S Power's projects, that's happened to them in other places, such as the city of Lancaster. That will not happen here. That's not how we do business. So, that's a Kern County Planning Commission. For this particular project, I will make sure, and I may have to deputize Michael here, but we will make sure that the remote testimony is open so that people could go down and they could, we could do it from Mojave if people don't want to all come to Bakersfield. That is an evening meeting. The Planning Commission starts at 7 o'clock. It's downtown at the same place where the Board of Supervisors are. It is, however, live streamed, so you can watch it online as it happens. And so that's the Planning Commission. And then ultimately, if it went to a Planning Commission, the earliest is October. It would not be before the Board of Supervisors till December. So this whole project will not come to a vote before December if they decide to move forward. In the meantime, whatever comments are given to us on the environmental impact report before they go to the Planning Commission, we have to answer those comments. And that's a document called Response to Comments that's provided 2 weeks before the hearing. And all of that is online, will be online and be available. So then we have a public hearing at the Board of Supervisors. So there is no, sometimes people have talked about, well, I need to appeal that project. This is not one of those kinds of projects. You don't have to put up money to get a hearing in front of the Board of Supervisors. This conditional use permit automatically goes to the Board of Supervisors because it's a conditional use permit along with some other things like a street vacation, and I think they have to they're asking to get rid of some dedications on the general plan. They may even have some zone changes. I think they do. So no one has to put up the appeal money to make it happen. Now, remember, the Board of Supervisors is the end. There is no appeal from the Board of Supervisors. That's called a lawsuit. And you go to court and you hire a lawyer and, that's that process. Some people have asked me if the project is denied, will the developer sue? That has never happened to me. Some people have asked me, well, you know, the board never has denied an environmental impact report. That's actually not true. Stonefield, which is a master plan community that spent $14 million on their project, was denied by the Board of Supervisors. And it had very good representation from a local Bakersfield engineer who felt pretty confident, even though from the very beginning, the supervisor for the district told him that he wasn't going to support it. And my department told him we weren't going to support it. And they still decided to move forward. I'm only telling you that because there is a perception sometimes that people have that everybody makes rational decisions. And they don't. Okay? Developers make decisions for a lot of reasons that are just their business decisions. Maybe they think they'll change everybody's mind. Maybe they think that, maybe they have investors who need a no. I mean, I don't know. So, if you are against this project, this is what you're into, unless they withdraw this project. And if they withdrew the project, I would immediately send everybody a letter who's on our mailing list, letting you know. Have people withdrawn projects? Yes, there was a wind project in Tehachapi by a company, Terrigen, who's done a lot of projects and was very well respected. It was in the wrong place. And they invested, I don't know, $8 million? $6 or $7 million, and they just didn't seem to understand. And before they could do their environmental impact report, they withdrew the project. So I say that. Is that the norm? No. But I did get some comments from people that it's futile. My comments are futile. I know that. That is not true at all. That is not true. But there is a process. All right? So on the second page, we talk about, okay, well, what are my opportunities for comment? Yes, you can send a comment now, but of course, the EIR is not coming out till August. So sending me a comment every week saying the same thing is just taking your time away from your families. I have all your comments. If you sent comments to Supervisor Scribner, he forwarded them to me. We have them all, right? Janice Mayes is my staff planner who is in charge of this project in advanced planning, and her email is on here. Once we send the EIR out for comment for 45 days, then we'll be taking comments then. You can attend the Planning Commission hearing as I suggested and make comments then. You can make comments at the Board of Supervisors. Now there are some jurisdictions that say, oh, you know, the EIR is circulating from July to August 24th, so you need to get your comments in by August 24th. That's not us either. Just to put that in perspective, we've done over 110 EIRs since 2009. We're not, we know what we're doing here in regards to the process. Anyway, we accept your comments no matter when you submit them. Until the Board of Supervisors votes, your comments will be put into the record. That means they'll be attached to the staff report, they'll be handed out, we'll read them and we'll address them. The reason that we say on there that we like your comments is so we can get them into that written response to comments. But if you turn something in and then you suddenly have another thought, or you get more people, send them in. You don't have to, you know, I've had poor people who've like put off vacations thinking they had to by that date, but the important thing is when the Board of Supervisors votes, it's done. Yes or no? My recommendation will be public a week before the Planning Commission when the staff report comes out. So on the Friday before the Thursday of the Planning Commission, there's a staff report. That's when I make my recommendation. That is my recommendation based on all the comments, based on my experience, based on the community values, based on environmental impacts. My staff gives me advice, but ultimately it's my recommendation. This company was counseled a couple of years ago about putting together those pieces of property and getting too close to the houses. They were counseled about that. I told them directly. When the project came in, they submitted the project the way it is. So I think Kern County is one of the most business-friendly places in California. That does not mean that we give business everything they ask for. because there are people who live here. So I came tonight because I wanted you to understand the process, because I know that the notice of preparation engendered a lot of fear and excitement, and we need to get organized and we need to get going, because this thing could just end up being approved before we have a chance to have our say. And I called Greg Wood, I asked him could I be on the agenda, and I appreciate you giving me this time. As Supervisor Scribner mentioned, though, this is a due process issue. They have a right to have a full public hearings and to have full public information so they can tell their side. So planning commissioners can't take a position on this until they have seen the EIR and heard public comment. The Rosamond MAC needs to listen to everything. You have incomplete information, and I am not saying that the EIR is going to assure you, reassure you, or anything like that. I'm just saying we need to have a complete process. If the county said no to this, and we didn't have a complete process, then the county can be sued by the developer. And then your taxpayer dollars go to that developer. We don't want that. And we also don't want to be known as a place that doesn't give a fair conversation to all sides. Your side as well as S-Power's side. And they have a side and they have an opinion. But they have some very hard decisions to make right now. So that's what they're working on, hard decisions. All right, so that's my presentation on S-Power. What kind of questions do you have before I drift over to cannabis? Oh, sorry, let's go back here. Go ahead.
My name's Bob Morris. I like to know when they started this stuff that they don't let the people that live in that area know what's going on, because they snuck the solar behind my house, 5 miles from my house. And I live out there on 100th Street. And then also heard too, this is hearsay now, that the people going to the people's house about wanting to sell your house, will give you an extra maybe $5,000, $10,000. If not, we'll get it knocked down by environmental.
Okay.
Now people worked out. I've been out here over 30 years. Before anything built in town here, I moved out here because I always called it God's country, freedom. That's why I moved way out there, worked for my buddy. And we loved it here in Rosamond. And I still do. My wife is gone now, but I'm still surviving and staying here. And my neighbors don't like it either. But no one ever tells them, hey, we're going to build it here, or thinking about building it. Because they stuck that in about 5 miles from my house. I live on 100, and it's out there by 120th Street. This town has got to grow. Where can it grow it now? That's the only way it can grow. Put the solar out there, you ain't gonna get nothing out there. You can't go towards Mojave, they got solar out there. You can't go out towards Edwards, Edwards got it. So how can we make this town more better than what it is than put solar?
All right, I appreciate your comments, thank you. I appreciate that you feel like we snuck it in. An environmental impact report is a 2-year project, and that one went through, and I appreciate that. Everything's online, and we send out notices. And
never received them, sorry.
Yeah, I got it. Oh, I don't send notices to all 16,000 people. Okay, I'm not required to send them. You publish in the newspaper. Now, I'm not saying your argument isn't a good argument, but I do want to talk about tearing down houses. There's no sneaky, we tear down houses. There's none of that.
Well, this is what I heard.
I understand.
And
but
I told the person that told me, go back and tell those people, tell them to see a lawyer then.
That's exactly right, because what people do is buy the property. They buy the property.
Yeah, but they threaten them, man. Like I said, they threaten them. They're going to get down the property environmental, knock it down environmental.
Okay, I don't know what you mean by environmental. Are you talking about the county? Are you talking about the county?
It came out of Bakersfield.
Okay.
This is what I heard. This is what I heard.
I understand. I hear a lot of things. I hear that the Tejon, out on Tejon, at the end of Rosamond Boulevard, the Tejon test site is where the aliens are kept. And I hear that all the time. And I don't know if it's true or not. Seriously, I hear that all the time. Where the SR-71 was built is really where the aliens live. So it's a big underground whatever. Okay, so I'm just here to tell you that it's not true. Now, Now, as far as Rosamond growing, I hate to tell you, but we've had an adjudication of water. There's no water out there. There's no place to build houses out there. And the reason that you've seen agriculture dry up and go away is they didn't get enough water in the adjudication. The community of Rosamond is what we need now. We need to revitalize our main street. We need to keep your houses in good shape. But we're not going to be building houses at 120th Street. There's no water. If you have a house with water, good for you. The rest of the properties didn't get any in the adjudication. And I'll let we don't need to talk about water, but that is why that's not, this community is not going to build a commercial, shopping center out there. Okay, other questions? Your question.
Yeah, you mentioned that not all of the land that's involved is owned by AVAC.
Right.
About how much do you have a rough idea?
Probably 2/3. About 2/3 is their land. Now, people have asked me, let's do the ask me questions, okay? Hey, if we say no to it, can't they just come in and build this project? And the answer is no. And the reason is that just like the Rosamond Community Services District has a charter of what they're allowed to do, the state has given the Antelope Valley East Kern Water District a charter, meaning these are the things you're allowed to do. You're allowed to do water stuff. They could put some wells on the property, but because of the adjudication, that could be a problem. They could put a water treatment plant, probably. But solar is not in their charter. And I have worked on this with a number of water districts who have tried to do this, and we are fully prepared, and the Board of Supervisors is fully prepared to bring our legal actions to say, nope, that's not the way it works. You want to build a Burger King AVAC, you have to go through the Kern County Planning Department and go through their process and get planning permits. You want to build residential housing, you're not authorized to do that. So this is, the only way is for them to lease it to or they could themselves come to us and go through this CUP process.
Or they can sell it.
Or they could sell it. That's right. All right. Any other questions about S-Power? Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about the Board of Supervisors voting, when we send a comment to the Board of Supervisors, is it shared with all the supervisors? Because not just Mr. Scrivener votes, all of them, do they all
absolutely.
see?
They all get it,
Okay.
and that is another part of this issue. Because, this falls off, I'm going to put it down here. The people sometimes say, I just want to give this to one board member. The board members are very clear about the law. One board member cannot have information that the other board members don't have. So what they do is they send it to me. It bounces back to me. And I make sure that it goes to everybody. So for example, if S-Power comes in and does a presentation for one board member, they'll send it to me. For that very reason. So that one supervisor doesn't have kind of information that they use to sway the other board members who may not hear your side of the story. So yes.
And I have another question. You talked about water being a problem.
Yeah.
But from past solar projects and what we're hearing about future solar projects is they guarantee us that there'll be shrubbery and stuff around them to hide the solar, and I know that requires water, so how do you balance that out with us having no water?
We make sure it's drought tolerant, which means they use a water truck. In the EIR, we have to calculate all that water. They have to tell us where it's coming from, and it has to be drought tolerant, meaning they're only using enough water to get it established. And that is a concern.
So because established and then it dies?
No, established then it lives because it's drought tolerant, meaning it only needs enough to get to a certain level, and then it's drought tolerant shrubs. One of the things that I want to be clear about is I am very clear that you cannot screen one of these, and we never say that. We never promise that. If the two people from S-Power said they were going to screen it, that's not what because they're just too tall.
Right.
And you can't put trees up because it blocks the sun. What I call it is softening. It softens the look, it creates some sort of different, right? So, but that is a concern. Okay. That's a concern.
Just one other quick question is, when you guys did the ERI, do you go back and make recommendations to the solar company? Like I'm thinking.
Do you think they don't write it? We do.
Right, but let's say that you don't allow them to do it the way that they had planned, but do you give them alternatives? Like
yes.
Like one thing I'd like to see is that if we're going to put, obviously we're going to put solar in our desert because it's happening. Can we do it smarter? can we build shade complexes over the high school and the Rite Aids in places where, give them options like that,
Well,
so
yeah,
that we're
but-
happy and they're happy.
Yeah, that is a good idea, and we sometimes put that in as an alternative. That is a different kind of solar than this. There's no, Southern California Edison is not going to give a power purchase agreement for the solar on covering that. That's a different kind of company. That's a different kind of company. But that is one of the alternatives. That instead of this power, we do what's called distributed generation, which is behind the meter. And yes, that will be one of the alternatives. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lorelei.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. That was a good presentation. My name is Sally Phillips, and we live 50 feet from where they're proposing this. So we're one of the people you were talking about. And I have a concern. I have a lot of health issues, but my concern is when they do the EIR, does the scope of that go into Valley Fever,
Yes.
which has raised 70%? And we know when they dig that up, all the 1,800 plus acres, that is a big issue to those of us who walk slowly, go down ramps, and we're only 50 feet from it.
Yes, there's an entire section in the air
So
quality.
it does.
Yes, we go into all the health impacts of grading, of PM10, which is the dust. Yes, absolutely. And we go to public health and we get the most recent information that we can, to put in the environmental impact report. So is there anybody who has, so just a reminder, S-Power doesn't write the CIR. And even the studies they give us, we peer review. They pay for everything, but they're not doing it. And they do get to comment back and say, excuse me, Lorelei, we don't like that mitigation measure because it'll cost us money. Money is not the reason to change a mitigation measure. If it physically can't be accomplished, I know that, like I misunderstood how their construction is happening, or I don't understand something about the way the substation is being built, right? That's different. That's different from, Lorelei, this will make the project unfeasible. Then the answer to that is, then you shouldn't build it. That's your business decision. The Board of Supervisors has empowered me to tell businesses early on not to invest in things that don't work for our community, so that they don't put up a lot of money. That's not, the board doesn't like people, that's not like county. You can invest $20 million and get to the board and they'll finally say no, and they'll say, sorry, you invested $20 million. However, they're concerned about profitability, so they are going to say that. My answer is, you picked this site. You picked this site. And this is not the only site that's been near houses. And we have other places that have been near houses, but not this many houses. But we have very, very big setbacks. Or we've said to them, look, either you can't put panels around that particular house. So this is not a surprise for them. Now, S-Power is a very good operator. They bought a project that was permitted up in Bakersfield. If you go down, 58 on the left-hand side at right past General Beale Road, Tower Line Road. It's a big solar project, but they didn't permit it. They've never gone through this process with Kern County. They've only gone through this process with the city of Lancaster, which is its own beast, and LA County. Okay? And so, to a certain extent, they're still kind of, getting, we care about our community input. And, we kind of gave them that heads up ahead of time. So they have some decisions to make. Okay, any more questions before I move on to cannabis? Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Say it again. Yes.
How much water do these projects require? I live out in Mass Promise. There's a large solar farm out there in the neighborhood, and there are large wells and large water tanks out there for that project. Who decides is it that they can drill or not? Because water is a concern, right?
Well, in the Antelope Valley adjudication out here is different from lands of property. It's different because this adjudication, that land either has water or it doesn't. But AVAC has a water right, so on their land. But we have policies and mitigation that tells them that they have to use the lowest quality water possible. That's a mitigation measure. They can't use your drinking water. They can't go to the RCSD and buy drinking water. That's not allowed under the EAR. And so they use, they don't wash, they're not mirrors anymore. They don't wash the panels every week. Most of the water is during construction for dust control and to keep the dust down. A big project like that would probably use, 75 acre-feet of water. Not a year, but total. And then every year they use a few acre-feet. And just as a reminder, your house on a well uses probably half an acre-foot to an acre-foot a year. So our concern about the water, though, is they do have to tell us where it's coming from, the quality of it, and they have to use other ways of keeping the dust down besides water, right? Because of, one of the issues in valley fever is when it gets wet, that's when the spores come up. So there are other ways to do that, and one of the ways to do that is phased grading. I'm not saying we're doing this on S-Power, I'm giving her an answer on like the totality of solar projects. Sometimes you don't take the actual vegetation up, you roll it down. When you roll it down, we don't have as much dust. So there's a lot of things that we've learned since 2009 in our projects, but that's a very important issue. Yes, sir?
At what point, let's play devil's advocate,
Sure.
let's say the project gets approved.
Oh,
My question's going into that, so.
okay.
Being up close to the house, where I'm going, there's 300 acres. At what point can we say, a chain link fence just ain't gonna work, because we have 2.5 acre.
During the environmental impact report. Now, here's what people do, and I am not telling you not to do this. Sometimes people feel that if they give suggestions, it's like saying, I like the project, right? So you just have to balance that out, right? You just have to balance that out. Suggestions are good, but sometimes if you want to couch them, you can always say, look, some people have suggested a chain link fence, and we know you're going to do one with some screening. I'm just letting you know that unless you put up a block wall, a mile away from me, it's not going to make a difference. That's just another way of couching your concerns and saying, look, if you really want to do this, Planning Commission and Board and Planning Department, here's what we think, and we can look at the noise, we can look at other sorts of things.
So that would all come into the planning.
That would, at the EIR, the EIR. And then if you have better ideas, you bring them up to the Planning Commission. And then you bring them up again at the board. Don't wait. Okay. All right, any last questions before I move on to cannabis? Yes, sir.
Just real quick, if you
Sure.
don't mind. Could you explain how much weight public comment actually has in the whole process, and how those comments that are made at the different phases affect the outcome?
I don't think it matters what phase you're at. I think it matters the physical impact of it. I appreciate you live 5 miles from the solar project. I appreciate that. But I appreciate more the fact that he lives 50 feet. I'm just saying. Okay? Because the impacts of 5 miles for you, and some of it's economic and some of it's your vision, and I get that. The 50 feet, we're talking about real impacts and I look out the window and I see, a floodlight. Or I look out the window and, there's a coyote because it wandered off of the solar project. So, yes. So they make a huge difference, but remember that me saying no to a conditional use permit is partly land use compatibility. And that's what we're talking about, land use compatibility. Is it compatible with this residential subdivision, which also includes the fact that you all have one water company, Sundale, well, not all of you, but Sundale Mutual has the water company that also is on the LA side. And I love Antelope Acres Town Council, and I'll go, but I'm very clear with them. Kern County residents' voices are the comments that have more weight than LA County. I care about them, and they are on the other side of Avenue A, but Kern County, you're the taxpayers, you're the ones that have to live with this. You chose to live over here, so your comments are important. Okay? Yes, sir.
Are these going to be motorized panels or stationary?
I don't know. I don't know yet.
Okay, because that's going to affect the noise, because Rosamond community put in some on Gasco.
Yeah, those tractors are
And
very
I live
noisy.
right there.
Yeah, those are very noisy. I
Yeah,
get
those
that.
are motorized. Any noise?
I think there's one more. Yes, sir.
Yes, so if this project goes through, and how long are the panels gonna be out here?
30
How long does
years.
the project last?
30 years.
30 years?
30 years, and then.
And then what happens?
Well, you know, they do bond for abandonment and taking down. That's not what's gonna happen. It's gonna happen exactly what's happening up in the wind farms. There's gonna be newer technology, smaller panels, you know, different configuration of panels. They'll take the same property and they'll repower it.
Okay, so if that happens,
They have to do a new CDP.
and so there's gonna be just tons of panels up and down Rosamond Boulevard, right?
I don't know yet. I don't have that. I don't have any other projects on Rosamond Boulevard except the ones you've already
Way
seen.
down there.
Yeah, I
What's
don't
in
have
this-
any other projects out there than the ones you see.
So where's the raceways start?
That's in Avenue A. That's not on Rosamond Boulevard.
Okay, so but it goes that way, right?
It goes between 90th and I left the thing
Okay,
up
so
there.
what happens what does the company do for the community while they're here and we have to look at all those panels?
Well, I don't know. S-Power was here. Did you ask them? Did they make a presentation on it?
Either tax
Yeah, what are they gonna do for us? And are we gonna have like lower prices for our electricity?
No, people ask me that all the time. The electricity grid is not local. The electrons from a San Diego power plant goes into SE and it comes out your electricity.
But yeah, we're gonna be just flooded by these panels. Our property values are going down.
I don't have any, I mean, I appreciate that. We've had this since 2009 and those are great comments. Those are good comments. All right, yes ma'am.
Does the environmental impact also study the impact of the electrical lines that were on the map that run from the station?
Yes, those are called intertie connection lines, and yes, we have to do that. And it happens that they're connecting to a substation that's in the city of Lancaster, so they also have to get approval from the city of Lancaster for this project.
Because that's gonna really interrupt a lot of people's homes.
Got it. Thank you. That's a good point. All right, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Do they do a post-environmental impact to see how it really impacted?
We have monitoring reports, yes, afterwards, they're part of the mitigation.